Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill Naaman's Bogus Hangout. I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves. Zara,
Hi, I'm
introduce
Zara.
yourself.
Yeah, I'm Zara Altair, and I write semantic content for web.
Steve.
Hi, I'm Steve Grinzer, and Gentleman Farmer this week, I think. Or maybe just Farmer.
Doc Sheldon of Intrinsic Value SEO.
Terry.
Terry van Horne, SEO Pro.
And I'm Bill Slosky of SEO by the Sea, and I'm the Director of SEO Research for Go Fish Digital. We were talking in the green room before the show started about the Florida update and the timing of the update. The fact that it was so close to, it happened back in 2003, but the terrifying thing about it was it happened so close to the holidays that a lot of websites were affected by it. And there's not much. Terry was telling us he saw a thread talking about updates, and there wasn't much discussion about the timing of the Florida update. So we're sort of doing a public service announcement, warning people about the fact that Google traditionally does an update between this time of year and the end of the year, often in September, maybe in November, that could impact Christmas. Terry, care to elaborate more on that?
Yep. If you do a search, you can find that Matt Cutts actually said that they would never do an update that close to Christmas again. They seem to, what I read seemed to say that they expect them every 90 days or so. Well, that's, they don't have a schedule down there, boys. Sorry. That they have to do it every 90 days or 3 months or whatever. But this one is pretty traditional because it's actually to prevent problems for small businesses as far as inventory. So they do usually, in my experience, I remember it happening around Canadian Thanksgiving. If they do it Thanksgiving for US, that's too late because that's basically almost Black Friday around. And the Canadian one is a month earlier. So just saying, expect it in the next month or two. It ain't going to happen in the next, like everyone seems to think it's going to happen in a week or two. Nah, I'll be surprised.
So it's anytime in maybe even November?
Yeah, I can check my calendar and see when the Canadian Thanksgiving is. October.
We should build a SEO almanac.
Yeah.
People put things up.
Just like if you look back, traditionally, there's almost always one in May. And one a few weeks after Christmas.
And would these traditionally be what we're referring to nowadays as core updates?
Yeah. They do have it right. It is about every 3 months. But this one, I know, won't occur in 3 months. It's well past 3 months or whatever now.
So Google
thinking it's going to happen any day. Well, sorry.
Google constantly is doing testing of search, and they're doing updates daily. They're not the heavy hitting updates like the core updates or a Panda or Penguin update, but they are daily. And every once in a while, they come out with one that tends to be much larger and could affect a lot more sites.
You also have to look at the source of the information is Webmaster World. So, and other places scammers hang out. So, yeah, they're constantly seeing updates because Google is constantly updating the spam stuff, not the core.
So we get indications from places like Barry Schwartz's SEO Roundtable because he monitors places like Black Hat World and Webmaster World and sees lots of people talking about updates and reports upon them. So that's sometimes how we get news of updates. He also, sources like that also often give them names. So updates are given names by some of these sources of information about updates going on. Or somebody like Barry might give it a name, like he did with the Medic update.
Yeah, there's also a lot of, how do I say, trust in these so-called SERP fluctuation measurement tools. You know, I don't believe in any of them because they can't possibly emulate Google. I mean, because even if you were skewed one way towards a certain type of site, say for instance, informational sites, if your research is skewed towards mainly informational sites, what you're looking at is different than what Google has because they have all kinds of queries, not just informational. Well, they have 3 kinds of queries.
So sites that provide information about potential algorithm updates aren't Google. They have their own tools, their own way of deciding whether or not some type of update's going on. They're not going to be perfect, and it's just hard to tell based upon going by those tools whether or not an update is actually happening.
Not just the tools. It's when some of them say something like 50% of all SERPs are no click. Well, if you have all information sites, yeah, you're going to, I'm surprised it's 50%. It should be higher.
Well, that 50% thing was a study using a specific data source that wasn't really scientifically selected.
Hence my point.
SEOs do non-scientific research?
No.
No. SEO toolmakers do non-scientific research.
Like no one can emulate Google. To think you can, you're foolish. Sorry, that's my, that's just how I feel because of the size and scale of Google. Google has 11 billion, how many? 11 billion plus pages. So how many people have a research thing that's even a billion pages?
Hmm.
And queries. How many queries have never even been seen before? So how can you tell the flux if the query has never been seen before? You can't.
The
Well,
latest-
certainly if somebody has been doing SEO for 2 or 3 months, they ought to be able to nail that shit. Just go to Facebook. Okay, a few dozen of them will tell you they've got it down pat.
I just think there's too much stock put in all those tools.
I think you can't believe exactly what the tool is telling you. It's kind of like a flashing red light on your dashboard. Something big is happening. It may get your attention. It's worth looking at. It's a reminder that you've got 12 sites out there. You might want to take a look and see what the hell is happening with them right now. But it's not going to give you any definitive information. It's just kind of, hey, somebody's making some noise in the backyard. You might want to turn on the light,
It's sort of like
It's sort of like 8 months.
It's sort of like the equivalent of a check engine light on your dashboard.
Yeah.
It could be your gas cap's loose.
Could be any number of things.
Yeah, it could be something much, much worse.
I always like the gas cap loose solution.
It's the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. That's the way I look at it when people are trying to make decisions, say, for instance, on featured snippets based on data that could be totally flawed, right? When they said X percentage are no click. Well, if that's flawed and you're making decisions and the number is not actually correct, then you're making a bad decision because you made it based on
and it's even worse than that, Terry, because even if the data is not flawed, even if it's solid data, Google is looking at 163 things at once to affect the way that a page ranks for a particular query. They're not looking at one thing or two things. And, so their processing capabilities are so far beyond, even if you have the ability to get that kind of information, how do you know that you're looking at the same information in the same combination with the same weighting? It's impossible.
That kind of leads into another story that was out there, and that's that you need 6,000 words now to rank. Well, sure you do if you don't have the topics in the first 1,000.
So you tell me that word count isn't a ranking signal?
Oh no, I don't think it is. The only time I can remember it was Alta Vista had a signal where if the page was too short, like they did took relevance to the point where you could put a 3-word query on a page and rank number 1.
Yep.
Because that was all on the page at 100%.
I've forgotten about that. Yeah, Alta Vista was bigger than that.
So if you were trying to rank a page for pizza and you wrote pizza a dozen times on the page?
Pardon me?
If you're trying to rank for pizza and you wrote the word pizza on a page a dozen times?
Yep. That's the way to do it.
Nope.
That worked for a few weeks.
that and keyword density, right?
Yeah. First time I ever came across SEO on the web was a SEO forum where there was an argument going on about the perfect keyword density for some niche.
Yep.
And I stopped by, I read through the thread, I was lurking, I didn't say a word, I just backed out slowly.
I remember when they said that you had to have a different page for every search engine.
I remember we used to have arguments over what was a competitive term, where people were thinking, well, whatever the most expensive product is, that's the most competitive term, because obviously that's what makes the most money. And it's like, but there's only like 6 websites on the entire internet that even mention this phrase. How can it be competitive? It's, oh my God. Some of the, yeah. What's bad is I feel like we haven't gotten any smarter. There's still people like that in the business with clients who pay them. And it's just a sad kind of thing.
A lot of the places where we shared that stuff are gone now. They just don't seem to be around.
Yep.
Yeah,
They can't be bothered about it now.
from the other side, people still ask for that stuff. I look at, people who are looking for writers, and they have, the keywords, and they wanted so many, they specify, must be X
I have had
in the
clients.
first paragraph and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, whoa, I'm staying away from this one. But, it's all out there. It's still out there.
I actually had a client, Sarah, about 3-4 months ago, a prospect. They're not a client. I didn't hire them.
Right.
But yeah, they said they wanted at least 5%, no more than 7.5% keyword density. And the same thing, they wanted to make sure that these 2 keywords are going to appear in every header and the title, first paragraph, last paragraph, and at least 4 times in the body, and and we're insistent that I quote them by the word, priced by the word.
Oh,
I
yeah.
said, you know what? You're in the wrong place. I don't know how you got my fucking number, but you need to lose it. I know the guy.
Really?
Optimization like that. Sprinkled the word so much at the beginning, so much throughout, and you had to have some at the end. That was a part of the algorithm.
Oh, yeah, it was a thing about 7 years ago.
It was a long time ago. Now it doesn't matter.
There was a poet in the 1800s who was a competitor of William Wordsworth, and he used to mock William Wordsworth by calling him William Wordswords.
Looks like the movie Amadeus when Mozart meets Salieri, and he's like, "Too many notes, don't you think?" No. Like when I hire Doc and his people to write content for my clients, I give them a title or a topic and 3 or 4 links to articles on that topic that I thought were good, and say, "Here you go. Send me back whatever you write," because let the writers do their thing with no guidance from me, because it's generally much better that way.
Well, it ends up being coherent, focused, clear, all that stuff that you want.
And it doesn't sound like an SEO article.
No.
Now, the ideal SEO article is one in which the SEO is totally undetectable by the reader.
Yep.
Very much so.
Having some good examples to work with is a good way to do it. This way you can find other things that are similar, and you can capture the range of content that they contain and write something that's somewhat comprehensive. So the number of words isn't how many ideally should be there. They're going to be based upon how many you actually need.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the key. What you actually need. Because what you actually need is what is in the top 10 documents, the topics, whatever.
Well, those documents can give you an idea.
We can use them as a reference. That's how I basically have done it recently. And it works really well.
Applying common sense makes
Common
a difference
sense.
too.
There you go, Bill.
Now you're just talking crazy stuff there, man.
No common sense. We don't believe in common.
Very uncommon.
So you understand the intent. You understand the intent behind the search for your page, and you gear the page towards that. So someone searches for pizza at lunchtime, they want a page about ordering a slice of pizza or a pizza pie. They don't care about some long document.
Right.
No, they don't.
If it takes 1,000 words to cover the topics and questions and entities, then it takes 1,000 words. If it takes 6,000 words, you probably haven't done a very good job of doing your research on your topics and entities.
If it takes 50 words, including your location, your phone number, and when you deliver, where you deliver, that may be enough.
And that's my general answer to most people when they talk about this topic online is you need enough words to convey the answer to the question you're trying to ask, that you're trying to answer. No more, no less. If you wind up finding yourself talking 6,000 words, then the problem isn't the number of keywords, it's refining your topic. Maybe you needed multiple topics instead of one really grand topic, and now you've got an opportunity to write 6 or 7 posts, make a series out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you write a series, now you've got a reason for people to keep coming back to read the next piece. And all this stuff works so well together, but so few people seem to get it.
Right. So most of the patents I've seen recently involving featured snippets all share one word that they have one word in common. It's concise.
Mm-hmm.
Does it provide a concise answer? Concise doesn't mean 1,000 words.
That is not a synonym of verbose.
Right.
And I still fall back to my old answer from years ago. It's like, read it out loud. If it sounds stupid, then it is stupid. It's not that hard. You know, if you find yourself reading it halfway through, you're going, I'm sounding like a moron. Then that's how it's going to read.
Then you're probably right.
The other side of it, I'm doing this UX project right now, and the people there are all very smart. And so I'm working on this one page, and there's this long sentence, which is the statement of the concise, quote unquote, statement of the benefit. And I was having trouble getting to the end of the sentence, and so I went, I'm just going to check this in Hemingway. And Hemingway said, this is grade 14. And this is a very hard to read. They have this scale of readability.
Yeah.
This is a very hard to read sentence. And I played around with it. I broke it up into 2 sentences and got to grade 13, which is still out of high school. And I went to sleep going, how do I fix this? And I woke up this morning and I went, what does X does this? And then 3 bullet points and boom, problem solved. But
right. So Hemingway often wrote on a 3rd grade through 5th grade reading level.
yeah, and my understanding, generally speaking, for web content, you want about 6th grade.
Yeah, that's the ideal.
Yeah, because especially when you're introducing your concept, whatever it is, you want to make it really clear and concise, so people go, oh, yeah, okay. And then they're ready for more somewhere else. You may have PDF handouts, you may have videos, but in order to get them to those background information things, you need to be really clear and very concise about what's in it for me, the person who landed on this page.
Right. Make your content very readable and set up in a format that's also very readable. If it's scannable, if it uses headlines, if it uses bulleted lists, those things help people go through the page.
On the web, scannability is way more important than readability.
Well, for some things, but there are times, there are points within a funnel where it is advantageous to get up in that 9th, 10th, 12th grade reading level, because you're trying to get the reader to think, to analyze. But you don't want to do that at the front end.
Nope.
Like Sarah said, it's got to be clear, in their face, no thinking necessary to understand what this is about.
3.5 seconds. People read a page in like 3.5 seconds, Doc. The decision is made whether they're going to read more in 3.5 seconds.
That you can't say that across the board. Perhaps average, perhaps mean, perhaps the majority of the time, but that's not going to be true all the time. Not every time. You can't make pat statements like that, because people are listening that are going to say, okay, well, this is always going to be the case. It may usually be the case, but it's not always.
So people doing UX studies discovered that on how long people would be willing to wait to download an image, it wasn't clear cut. There was any specific period of time. It depended on what the image might be of.
Exactly.
For some things, people will wait much longer than other things.
Yeah, this is my first sort of bigger UX thinking project, and it's a very high ticket item. It starts around $70,000, and a number of people are usually involved in the decision making process. So at this very first level, it needs to be very clear where somebody who's interested needs to go to find more information so they can go sell it to their team, their CEO, or whoever else is involved. And so it's very challenging to get a high level concept down to, docs word concise text, which then piques enough interest to get people to go read these, grade 14, 15, and 16 pieces that provide the supporting documentation. It's not a widget, as it were. I mean, it's a high ticket widget, but it's not. There's a lot of decision making that goes on between discovering and the actual decision to purchase the item.
So part of the challenge behind that is the amount of confidence that people might have in anchor text in navigation.
Correct.
You have to make sure that when people see a certain word and a link on your page to another page, that word has to reflect some level of confidence what they might see on the page that they go to when they click through.
Yes, so you need to give them a clue of what's over there, because click here doesn't do it.
Right. So it needs to be relevant for what's on that page. So you get the hypertext relevance for the link, but it also needs to be very clear and give them confidence.
One of the things that's happening right now is that the way things are designed right now, it's not always clear that these words right here are clickable. So that's what we lost, Terry. So that's something else I'm working on. It needs to be clear that when you have this in red text, for instance, that's not necessarily an indication that clicking here is going to take you to something else. So yeah, it's a big project.
So John Mueller said on Twitter this week, we don't index links.
Yeah.
He said we don't index links between pages, we index pages.
Well, which is absolutely true, as long as what you're putting, if you're talking about what's in their index, it's kind of obvious. That discussion that Terry shared with us, I mean, that was, God, I just wanted to bang my head on the wall.
So I remember reading that tweet thread in real time and saying, yeah, that's true. Google doesn't directly index the links, but they do a lot of link analysis. When they see links, it gives them that. It's like seeing that all of a sudden there are tens of thousands of pages that aren't linked to by anything else, but linked to just one page. And these tens of thousands of pages just sort of appeared out of nowhere. It looks really suspicious when that happens.
I would not be surprised that Google knows about links that you had on your page and removed.
Oh, you would think, yeah. I would imagine so.
Or
they
Google
archive everything else. Why would they not archive their graph, right?
And Google keeps track of new links to your page. They understand the rate that people are linking to your page. That's how they know something is evergreen. Not because it doesn't have a date on it, because people keep on linking to it.
Yeah. You mean you can't just go to your 12-year-old blog post and change the date? Because I have seen a thread recently where somebody was touting that as
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
cutting edge.
Cutting edge. Change the date.
Just update the date.
That trick is as old as blogs.
And it worked at one point back in the 90s.
Probably still does, or looks like it works. That's
Maybe it worked for a day or two.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what,
But maybe not much longer.
Here's my point: that SEOs seem to look at things. For instance, 6,000 words now needed to rank a page, and come to that conclusion because a bunch of searches they made had really long pages, and they come to that conclusion based on that.
Somebody does a study with 11.8 million search results and says Google only ranks pages on its first page if they have at least 2,000 words on them. So you have to write 2,000 words if you want to rank on first page.
Yep.
Hello?
and 12,000 so-called SEOs line up behind him, waving the banner. He's my hero.
Right. Yeah.
Innovative. This guy is innovative. Oh my.
Cutting edge stuff there, buddy.
I just, I look at who people kind of put on this pedestal and I just shake my head. Because they read one blog post by the guy. If they went and looked at all that he'd written, they'd realize.
Well, if it was Neil Patel, it's gold.
Well, or at least whoever wrote it for him knew their shit, right?
Right. Naresh Pandey is in the audience, and he made a point. He said people scan the page, not read the page for 3 seconds. So he's making a distinction. But he said something which I think is important, which is I always scan and try to see where the content related to my query is residing. Where
the snippet that you receive for result should show you highlighted from that snippet where your query terms were. So you should get an idea of what's showing on the page. If you click through, and you should be able to see your query terms or something related to your query terms. It's not always the greatest indicator of whether or not that content's really helpful and that search result's a good one. But they try to foreshadow what's on the page that includes that.
Well, I think they just like changing everyone's description.
Keep us guessing, right?
We do it better, so we're going to do them all.
And you're going to have to think.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's going to leave a mark.
I've come to the conclusion that all you can do is remove what you don't want them to put in as a snippet. And that's the only choice you have because they're going to make the choice regardless. Yeah.
So a question for you all. Have any of you seen any home activities, rich search results?
No.
Things that tell you about home activities like home exercises, home yoga.
Yeah, to be in the cert, you have to be using the structured data, and it was just released yesterday. So it'll probably be a few days before we
Right, it's perfect for a pandemic. When you're
I think they're going to expand the topics to like make it longer, more things. You could teach a lot of things at home, like how to play poker, all kinds of stuff.
How to play the guitar, how to work out, how to do lots of things. Yeah, how to paint. We'll have Bob Ross uh, websites with people showing how to paint mountains and clouds and things, right?
You can be guaranteed that that snippet will see the most abuse ever. Because oh, mine, you do it at home, so it qualifies. the data. You watch, it'll be the most abused one ever.
It could be.
Well, as you can tell, I'm kind of skeptical of that. Everything.
Being skeptical is good in SEO.
Oh, yeah. It's kept me in business for 25 years.
Mm-hmm. So another story. What goes into an XML sitemap? Should only your blog posts go on, or should your category pages?
I never put category pages.
Quite get. Bing's saying that you should be putting those in your sitemaps. Category pages. There's some I would put in, but if you have one post in a category, do you really need that category indexed? I don't think so.
There are instances, like for instance, for an e-commerce site, I could see you'd want to have categories in the sitemap. But for most instances, I don't ever add categories or tags. In fact, I don't even use tags if I can get away from it in the sitemap. Just pages and posts and images and videos.
I no index tag pages. I consider.
I don't
them,
even use tags on my WordPress sites. I just got away from them entirely. I use categories only, and I no index those.
I tell people you use tags at your own risk.
Yeah, I've worked on at least one blog where there were 430 categories and maybe an equivalent amount of tags. And the tags should have all been no index, and the categories should have been cut down by like 1/8 to 1/8 its size, maybe 40 or 50 at most.
Yeah, people see.
So the categories were very specific. I mean, they had to be that many on a.
The categories included things like #1 SEO firm.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the categories. It's like get real. That shouldn't be a category. It's spam.
I recently did a category restructuring for a recipe site, and the lady had 120 some categories at first, and I took it down to I think 28 or 22, something like that. But yeah, there would be a recipe for lemon pie with chiffon frosting or meringue frosting, and it might show up on 4 different categories: meringue, lemon, pie. So I've got all these categories. It's pies, damn it, pies.
Pies, cookies, cakes.
Exactly.
Puddings.
But there was just so many of them.
Once on SEO Dojo Radio, because that seemed the best way to make a better search. So people could search on the tags, because categories were, I thought, too broad in that case.
Well, yeah, there are times, like for me, I think tags could come in handy on a site where you have to have searchability on the site. Yeah. Like an e-commerce, for instance, I think tags can be very helpful there. But you don't have to, now for instance, if you've got a sorting search capability where you're looking for a dress shirt and you want it to be a men's and you want it to be, white and you want it to be silk. Okay. Having those tags makes your sortable site search a whole lot easier to do, and lets your user really dial in a whole lot better, and not have to sort through 65 pages of most of which he's not even interested in. Okay, in order to find what he wants. But for
So
most
you're
of the sites,
so you're making
for
you're making
non-e-com,
it, yeah. So you're making it faceted search.
yeah, basically yes. So why use tags though on a site where it's a blog? One of my sites, if I'm talking about various SEO topics and technical topics, I don't need to use tags. I can have that all categorized and it searches very well. If I had 5 million pages, that might be a different story.
Well, I thought of it like this, because on that site, someone could be looking for stuff that specific people have said. So there was a tag for each person in the podcast. Topics within the topic, like local SEO, I would have a category local SEO, but break it down to, say, reviews under the local topic tags. I found that was an easier way to break it down. That's all, further than categories.
Excuse me.
There's 300 videos, so and searching isn't that good. So
I have a question for Doc. So
Uh-oh.
when your dress shirt example, 'cause I don't deal in e-commerce, so but on your dress shirt example, do you have with French cuffs, without French cuffs? How do you make that kind of distinction, or do you?
Well, I think for a shirt, for instance, you might get so far as to say you want silk, cotton, blend, okay, as sub tags, but
Okay. But that's it.
Often with a product page,
Right.
you sometimes have variables that you can choose from, you can select from for that product, so you don't have separate pages for 5 different colors.
All right.
You
Yeah.
can just
Exactly.
on that page you can choose which color you want. And
For
same
instance,
with
when I go, if I'm shopping for a shirt online, because of my
the suspense is killing me, Doc.
okay.
Doc got frozen.
So the same with different types of fabrics, or the same with different types of features, like sleeve types. You may have ways to modify the prototype shirt. So you may only have one page with lots of choices.
I see.
And it sometimes works well with products. Doc, are you with us again?
barely,
You're-
my Taco ISP was on vacation there for a minute.
Well, you're mid sentence.
Yeah, you were mid-sentence. If I were searching for a shirt,
Esther back on the wheel.
Well, for my personal taste is I like a button-down collar. Okay.
Mhm.
And I stumbled across a site the other day where I could order, and actually one of their filters was button-down collar. Once I got down to men's shirts and casual, it offered me button-down collars. Well, for me, that's great. For the average shopper, I doubt that getting down to that kind of nitty-gritty is really, so, okay, if you're looking for a print shirt, do you want to see categories that are not category, but tags that are going to take you into flower print, animal print? No, that's ridiculous. So, it's going to depend a little bit on the site, but I think that it's imperative that you kind of try to err on the side of conservative, I think, because otherwise you just make it, when somebody looks at a sidebar filter on an e-com site and they see they're going to have to make 36 selections before they can see anything, that's probably going to drive them away too. Now, the ones that I like to see are those filter bars where everything you change, it immediately filters. You don't have to hit select or anything else. If you decide that this is your new price range and you change it to a different price range, it updates them all, and it'll drop out the ones that are outside of that filter. That's usability, I think, is outstanding on something like that.
Yeah, that's probably JSON too.
Oh, it is, yeah. I was impressed. I wasn't looking for it because I like that, but it looked like it was all custom scripted. But
Hard to index. Hard to get indexed.
Yeah, well, it was very. I think it was customized, but it was on a high end site too, so somebody could afford it. But it was, so I think, Sarah, you just need to really consider the situation. I like to err on the side of conservative. I don't want to see too much detail. It's just.
Oops.
I can anyway.
Back on siesta.
Did I drop out again?
Yep.
No.
I'll quit trying.
Anyone beat that image search lately? I guess they're telling people what's got licenses now.
I looked earlier when I saw that, Terry, and I could find none.
You could.
So image search is going to include Creative Commons license?
Yeah, whether it's and if it's licensable, which I like. So you would be able to filter stuff that wants to sell you. You can filter them out of the results. Love it.
So Creative Commons license is not necessarily, it's not a license. It's a
waiver.
It's a waiver, essentially.
It's a waiver of a license. You don't need to provide a license, but you need to display this tag. And you need to use it in the ways that we've described in the license somebody's put on a product. By license often means that you need to actually buy a license from somebody who's showing a tag. So like a stock image place. What if that means that they'll show that something's in the public domain?
Getty Images.
Well, public domain means that it's there's no longer any copyright on something.
Oh, right.
It's either a government a government product that wasn't work for hire. So something like the Work Project Authority from the 1930s, which government paid people to create posters and things like that, and they're considered public domain, or something that's the copyrights run on already. So like Tarzan works before 1923, and there are other things that came before 1923 that are public domain.
How many years can they have domain for?
What's that?
How many years, Bill?
It varies.
It's a mess. They've changed the law multiple times. Walt Disney pushed through changes to try to protect Mickey Mouse so that people wouldn't use Mickey Mouse as a public domain image. They kept on getting Sonny Bono to change copyright law, and he did. Which the terrible thing is, Mickey Mouse was based upon a character from like 10 years before Mickey. So he was sort of Steamboat Willie.
Was that a Disney character or someone else's?
Nope.
No, it was somebody else's.
Oh, wow.
So basically, what Disney was saying is, we don't want anybody stealing what we stole.
Right, but if you look at some of Disney's biggest movies, they're stories that were created by other people other than Disney, like Cinderella or
folk tales. Yeah.
Yep.
Reimagined by Disney.
right.
I mean, I did original folk tales. I studied folklore in college many years ago. But anyway, original folk tales are often extraordinarily grim, because they were lessons for kids. And Cinderella, for example, the sisters one sister cuts off her heel, another sister cuts off her toes so they can fit in the shoes, and everything is kind of whitewashed in the Disney versions.
Right. So Hansel and Gretel is about two kids that get captured and some witch is trying to bake them.
Yes, in the oven in her house. Yeah. Yes.
Right.
And she has baked other kids in her oven.
So this is a tale for children.
Yeah, they were essentially cautionary tales about something or other.
So Stranger Danger?
Stranger Danger was definitely one of them. My favorite one is about thinking, and it was Little Red Riding Hood, and it was from southern France. And she goes with a basket and goes to visit the grandmother, and the wolf has eaten the grandmother, and she arrives, and the wolf's there with the grandmother's clothes, and what big ears you have, blah blah. And the wolf says, "All the better to eat you with," and Red Riding Hood says, "Yeah, but I think I need to go to the bathroom first, because you wouldn't want to eat me with all that stuff inside." And the wolf goes, "Oh yeah, good idea." And there was no indoor plumbing, so she has to go outside to relieve herself. And she goes outside, runs away. Woodsman comes back, chops up the wolf. Grandmother pops out, and all is well. But it was all about how to think about how to get yourself out of a tough situation, rather than I don't know. The morals are more practical than.
So did that come out in the Disney show?
No, they did not come out in the
I saw somebody discussing it in a thread a long time ago, discussing I think it was the Grimm fairy tales, that they said, somebody facetiously said, well, you know why they invented those tales, really? Because mothers back then were a lot smarter than they are these days. Once their kids started waking up at the crack of dawn and waking them up, they figured out a way to keep them awake all night so they could sleep in.
Yeah, the Grimm brothers, their stories are grim.
Aptly named, yeah.
Yeah. Carl says you're talking about page creation for search engines. Cut off the toes to make the shoe fit.
So Terry, there was a voice search study?
Yeah, that isn't on the list, Doc, but I ran into it after and found it very interesting. It's on Search Engine Journal, And
It was about a study done by SEM Rush.
yeah, it was an SEM Rush study on local voice ranking factors, which voice isn't really a big deal yet, but if you start thinking voice as in voice assistants, and as you pointed out, Bill, cars have had assistants in them since 2017. Some models have Google stuff, assistants in them. Kind of the future of search, really, when you think about it, is answering questions on the fly like that. It's why search we do.
So many people do local searches on phones, and you ask Siri or you ask Alexa about businesses.
Yeah, apparently Alexa isn't very good at answering questions.
I think Alexa's best at answering product questions.
Products, yep.
If you ask a question about what you can buy at Amazon, Alexa's really good at that.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Oh, so it's more for ordering stuff on Amazon than it is.
Right. If you ask Alexa how much is a Big Mac or a quarter pounder, it'll say we don't have those at Amazon.
But the personal assistants, people have to kind of understand that what Google is doing with search right now with the featured snippets, and basically building out a knowledge graph, it's for these appliances. I'm not going to call them devices. I'm going to call them appliances because I think that's what they really are. They're going to be like the radio in your home right now.
The smart speakers aren't just going to be speakers. They're going to be refrigerators and ovens and cars and other devices that have the internet built into them and a way to ask a question, press a button, and get an answer.
Question. We've been hearing the refrigerator and the microwave and every appliance. I don't go for it. I don't believe that. Who's going to pay extra to have their refrigerator keep a track of what they need to buy? I just don't see it. Sorry, because you know what? They charge so much for that feature. You know, only people with too much money will buy them. Sorry, that's my personal opinion.
But I'll tell you a little something. I just about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we had a refrigerator fail on us, and I tried to figure out what was going wrong with it. And I get in there and I found out it's got a computer board in it. Okay. So I contact the manufacturer, talk to one of their engineers, and I find out that the replacement board is going to cost me a little bit more than twice what the whole damn refrigerator cost me used. And no, you can't. I figured, I'm just going to get this computer function. I don't need the display in the door. I don't need all this crap. I just want it to make things cold. You can't do it anymore. Okay. It won't. You will not function without that board. There is no way to bypass it.
Refrigerators. They don't want to sell boards. They sell refrigerators.
My last oven had a computer board in it, and it started emitting a warning signal, and it just wouldn't stop. And there's no way to stop it. So I contact the manufacturer, and they say you need a new board in it. How much does that cost? They said you should probably buy a new oven.
Well, I was in front of them.
That's why I would never buy an appliance that has that kind of stuff in it for that reason.
So I think that was your only option these days.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You can't buy car without a computer in it.
I don't.
They don't buy a refrigerator
without a board in it.
cars don't come with chokes anymore. They come with computers that
Yeah,
determine
I heard
what
that.
the percentage is of gas and air.
Well, most
Uh,
cars now probably, if you crack the hood and try and work on it yourself, it voids the warranty. Wouldn't surprise me. Like some computers, if you open certain parts of them, you own it. They won't fix it.
And I think that's going to be increasingly true of most types of appliances, including things like refrigerators or ovens.
Yeah, could be. I just can't see people paying all that extra money for those bells and whistles. I guess,
I would agree, Terry, except that those may be the only things that are available.
Yeah. In other words, you can't get it without the bells and whistles.
Exactly. We no longer carry that.
Yeah.
We have this new upgraded 3 times the price model now.
But I do see the point where these assistants won't be like when you buy a new home, your house will be wired with those things all over the house. Just so, because that's how things are going. Like if you look at voice assistants and compare it to the internet, we're at about the stage in the internet of about 1997 with that kind of thing.
With the voice stuff.
So every home is going to have intercoms in every room, which will be
Right.
connected to a voice assistant.
Which you can access from your phone across town and talk to your daughter in her bedroom. Yeah.
So voice assistants work with fluorescent lights.
All kinds of things.
Yeah,
Oh,
there are lights that you can dim or brighten based upon what you tell the voice assistant.
So a lot of applications that you have in your home now are going to be replaced by
Right.
that. Right now, I think you can get those kind of features from the cable company, who now also sell ADT.
Mhm.
The problem, though, and I agree with 100% with what you're saying. It would not make sense to pay that kind of money for that if you had the option of going to low tech. But I think that option is going away. But the part of it that concerns me worse is the fact that if the home, 20 years from now, if homes are mostly built that way, now you've got the situation where if a board in your home goes down, none of your lighting works. None of your air conditioning works.
But all that stuff will already, but it won't have anything to do with the assistant. That will all be built in right into the home, something else.
Yeah, but when that component board goes, it's going to wipe out your entire electrical system. It's not going to wipe out the lights in your closet. It's going to wipe out all your electrical system. And you're going to have to pay the guy $6,000 to come in and find out that he's going to order you a $12,000 board. Okay, that's what I have with it.
How many of you have bought thermometers recently? Do you remember when thermometers were like a glass tube with mercury in the middle?
Mercury.
Can't find them now.
You get these electronic things that are like Bluetooth enabled, stuff like that. It's
Wow.
How do you? I ain't even gonna go there. Sorry, I almost did.
Well, we just bought this last week. We bought one of those little guns that you point at your forehead and it gives you a digital reader. I said, okay, I'm thinking to myself, I got to see what the rectal version looks like on this one.
Oh man.
You can't even find the old. Of course, the mercury loaded thermometers went away years ago. Now they were all this alcohol load, but you can't even find those anymore. Now they're all digital, and they're almost as cheap as the old ones were. I think we paid like $12 for this gun.
right. So the prices are coming down on them, but they're not coming down like it was when it was a piece of glass with mercury in it.
Yeah,
I
those
mean,
are cheap.
that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
I still have 2 of them. I mean, as long as they don't break, they're based on physics.
Yeah.
I've got a couple in the house that are older than I am. Well, my mom worked as a nurse long before she met my dad, so.
Yeah, one of the ones I have is my grandmother's, so, who knows how old it is.
So the thing is, technology is increasing. We're going to see these voice assistants everywhere, and people are going to do spoken queries to find local things. And often it's going to be voice assistant in a car, because many cars have will have search built into them if they're not there already.
Yeah.
Google made some deals with companies like Audi to build search into their dashboards, and that's in many other cars now. So it's in a lot of mobile phones. Often they're local searches with cars or with phones, and people are searching that way.
Doesn't always work, though. I know we were out a couple of weeks ago with my son and my granddaughter and on some family little mini adventure, and my son wanted to find a particular restaurant, and he asked, where is this, to the car. Yeah. And the car pointed to some place, like 8 miles away, and he said, no, I know there's one closer. And he had to ask, I think, 4 times to find the one that he knew was there, but he didn't know exactly how to get there,
Right. So you're going to be able to do at some point in time, you're going to be able to search like, show me an antique restaurant that has an antique store that has a Chinese restaurant nearby.
Right.
So that you can do shopping and lunch on the same trip.
And if it could be Mandarin, please.
Restaurant is near
What's that, Terry?
Or the Chinese restaurant is near the other place.
Yeah. So Google doesn't have the capability now to provide results for a search like that. Combined search.
Combined search.
But it's probably not all that far away.
Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah.
No, because what you do in the voice search, if you really wanted to do that, you do what you used to do on search, which you would ask the first question, and then you would ask the second. After you found the answer to the first question, then you would ask the next question, and you would see if they would correlate. It would, it had to work. But
well, yeah, like for instance, you could do a search and say, "Where's the nearest antique store to my location?" And then you can say, "Where's the nearest restaurant to that antique store?" I would think right now, voice search would handle that.
You would think so.
Much like the question of who's the president of the United States, what's his wife's name? You can probably say, okay, what's the nearest restaurant to that location or to that antique store? I would imagine that'd be an interesting test, but I bet it would work.
I think you can do a search from this location. So you find the location of the antique shop, and then you search from that location for a restaurant.
yeah, but I think what Doc said, I think you can do that now.
Before you even go there, I'm thinking.
Yeah, what is the nearest restaurant? Because with Google, it's already found the nearest antique store, and now you say, and what is the nearest restaurant? And then
but I'm not quite sure it's there yet.
It's not there yet.
I bet you if you give it a specific address and said Chinese restaurant near here, it would
Oh, okay.
That'd be an interesting test to try this afternoon because if it tells me, okay, the nearest antique store is Terry's Antiques on D Street, I should be able to follow that immediately with the next question. What's the nearest Chinese restaurant to Terry's Antiques?
Yeah.
Right.
Because I think it should make that immediate association from my last query. It'd be interesting to test it out.
I'm thinking if Terry's Antiques was on the knowledge graph, the address would be there. They could pick the address and find a restaurant closest.
Mm.
Well, if they're able to tell me that Terry's was the nearest place to my present location, they know where Terry's is.
Right.
You know? So I don't know why the hell I'd want to buy antiques from an old antique, though. Sting!
My personal possessions. Oh,
Okay, we're at the top of the hour. So I think it's time to call it a show. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye all.
Have a good week. Take care. Bye now.